episode of Learn with Tridib. Many times when you go to different institutes, B schools or D schools to train the students, and sometimes when we are doing designs for clients, many of the students, they ask me a question, very simplistic questions, that how much information we should put in a website or an app, where should be the buttons, where should be the form fields, how big should be the button, what should be the color of the button, how many buttons should be there with a form, and what will be the hierarchy of the colors of the buttons, how to place the buttons, how visible should be each and every button, how a particular radio button will work, how particularly a toggle button will work, and all these type of questions. See, there is no magic to it, but there is, or rather there are specific rules to the game. There is a proper psychology behind each and every elements where they are placed and how your user will react to it. So in this episode, I am going to cover one of the biggest and most important aspect of UXD, that is psychology behind UXD. What are the rules that govern how a button will be placed, how big the button will be there, what are the hierarchy of buttons, how a tabbed browser should be made, how a toggle button should be there, how big the font should be there, how much content I should put in a website or an app. All these answers will be given very clearly. So before we deep dive, a gentle request to like, share and comment on this video. And if you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you can get all our upcoming notifications. So without much ado, let's get started. So here it goes, making UXD useful and relevant. How to separate the meaningful from the crap. I'm Tridib Ghosh. I'm the founder and CEO of Chlorosynth. I'm a certified UXD expert, professional design thinking practitioner, visual thinker and storyteller, YouTuber with the handle @LearnWithTridib. I'm an Instagram influencer, goes with the handle Tridib Ghosh. Let's understand the psychology behind designing better products and services. Let's deep dive. Let's explore the laws of UX. The first law is Jakob's Law. Jakob's Law was coined by Jakob Nielsen, a user advocate and principal of Nielsen Norman Group or NN Group, which he founded with Dr. Donald A. Norman, former VP of Research at Apple Computer. So Jakob's Law states that users spend most of their time on other sites. This means that users prefer your site to work the same way as all the other sites they already know. Seems complicated? Not at all. Let me explain the key takeaways. Very simply put, it says that your users are not only visiting your website, they are also visiting similar website, the type of site that you are also building. So by visiting other competitors' site or other similar platform sites, they have already got a mental model in themselves. They know where to find certain buttons, they know where to find certain navigation link, they know how to filter through the navigation link, and they also know how to select product or services from the website. While coming back to your site, they exactly expect the same experience. I'm not talking about the interface design. You can create as beautiful interface that you can do, but don't keep elements, relevant information, relevant elements of your website in experimented mode so that they won't find when they are searching those things in the entire user journey. They transfer their expectations that they have built around other familiar products to another that appears similar. So if you are a e-commerce based website and they have seen other e-commerce websites, they will expect that your e-commerce website will behave the same way as the other websites does. By leveraging existing mental models, we can create superior user experiences in which the user can focus on the task rather than on learning new models. If you are in an e-commerce business, always create user experience which is familiar to other businesses, online businesses of same type. Don't let a lot of experimentation in your user interface. That will take a lot of time from the users to find the relevant links and filters and products from your site. As time goes, they will get frustrated and they might leave your site without even taking any action. When making changes, minimize discord by empowering users to continue using a familiar version for a limited time. That means if you have just started the website, give some time and empower your users to be familiarized with the interface for a limited time period. When they have familiarized, then slowly you can experiment with the user interface because they already know your product and your brand. Let us understand how we create these user interfaces like we create in the real world. In the real world, we are accustomed of various type of switches and buttons, whether it is a toggle button or a switch button or a press button. We try to replicate the same thing in our online experiences also. And that's the reason we have check boxes, we have radio buttons, and we have switches. So if you see the left-hand side, it is the electrical control panel elements, courtesy Jonathan H. Ward. And the right-hand side, we have a typical Google material design form elements. Let us now consider YouTube's interface. When YouTube decided in 2017 that they will be changing their interface, if you see compared to their older design, they have not changed the structure very much. What they have done, they have kept the same left element in both the before and after design. They have kept the logo at the top. What they have done, they have reduced the logo so that you have more breathing space, more white spaces surrounding. If you see the search field is still at the top, but over here it has been subdued but using gray colors and very thin border so that it's not overpowering. In the right hand side, they have still kept the recommended thumbnails and other thumbnails, but they have reduced the number of thumbnails that you can see, and they have introduced a lot of white spaces. Though they have done a lot of design changes, UI changes, but they have kept the original structure as it is. Let us now understand any e-commerce website. If you see whether it is Etsy or a Nike or a Amazon.in or Amazon.com website, the basic structure of the website is absolutely same. Means there will be a top navigation bar, there will be product navigation bar, and there will be the left hand side, we will have the filters where you can select as per category, as per price, as per offers, and so on and so forth. In the right hand side, the big area, we will be having thumbnails with their description and the price listing and ratings. These are common in all e-commerce sites. whether we go for threadless, whether we go for any website which is selling commodities, you'll find the same structure in it. And at the top, there will be a shopping cart and a sign. And obviously, we cannot miss the huge search bar at the top. So if you place an Amazon or an Etsy, you'll see both the sites structurally looks the same. The next law is Fitt's law. Fitt's law was coined in 1954 when psychologist Paul Fitts, while examining the human motor system, showed that the time required to move to a target depends on the distance to it, yet relates inversely to its size. By his law, first movements and small targets results in greater error rates due to the speed accuracy trade-off. Although multiple variants of Fitt's law exist, all encompass this idea. Fitt's law is widely applied in user experience and user interface design. What is the key takeaways? Let us first understand the definition. It says the time to acquire a target is a function of distance to and size of the target. The key takeaways are like the touch targets or the click targets should be large enough for users to accurately select them. Please understand, when you are having an handheld devices, you are not using a mouse, you are using your fingertips. Since the fingertips are not smaller than the mouse or not a small pointer, it is a flat base at the top, so hence it has a wider area, surface area. So your button should also be big enough to accommodate that finger click or the finger touch. Also understand, we should have ample space between different targets so that it should not overlap. You are using finger again, so that's the reason your two targets will have ample space between them, so that when I'm clicking one button, I should not be mistakenly clicking another button because I'm using a finger. Also understand, these touch targets, whether it's a button or checkbox or radio button, they should be very near to the last form field so that it is much more easier for the user to reach them. The distance you keep more, it will be taking more time to reach them, and that will actually slow down the process. Buttons, when kept very close to the last element of the form field, has a better clickable rate or the touch rate. So this particular diagram is quite complicated in the very first way. I don't want to complex your life in that way. So let us understand this diagram a very easy way. In the y-axis, we have the movement time, how much time it takes, and the x-axis we have kept the distance between the origin where your first movement starts and the target. W is the width of the target. Hence, the Fitt's law is mathematically represented as mt. The movement time is equal to a plus b. A is the intercept and b is the slope of this curve into log to the base 2 into 2 by distance by the width of the target. So is a function of the distance and the width of the target. In any mobile devices, we have very clear indication that which is the most accurate interactive area of the mobile and which is the least accurate interactive area of the mobile device. The corners or the edges of the mobile are the least accurate. So you should not have very important CTAs or buttons over there. You should keep your most important buttons in this area of your mobile devices so that they can be more accurate to click. And it is also the minimum distance from the base of the mobile. Understand the various way a person uses a mobile device. The first one is the cradle way. The second one is hold and touch. The third one is mostly used by gamers when they are interacting in a game interface where both the hands are used in the similar way. The fourth one is one hand first order where the thumb is exactly at the center. One hand second order is where the thumb is a bit above the center, and two hands portrait mostly used while we are doing a selfie or we are taking a photograph using our camera. Let us now understand these two interfaces. Both are forms. In one, we have the submit button in a big size and very near to the last form field. In the second one, we have a smaller submit button and it is farther away from the last form field. Fitt's law states the interaction for the first one will be much more faster for the user than the interaction in the second one. Hicks law. The third law is Hicks law. Hicks law or the Hick-Hyman law is named after a British and an American psychologist team of William Edmund Hick and Ray Hyman. In 1952, this pair set out to examine the relationship between the number of stimuli present and an individual's reaction time to any given stimulus. Hicks law states that the time it takes to make a decision increases with the number and the complexity of choices. That means, very simply put, if you have too many choices, if you have too many complex choices, obviously your decision time will increase. The key takeaways are minimize choices when response times are critical to increase decision time. Break complex tasks into smaller steps in order to decrease cognitive load. Avoid overwhelming users by highlighting recommended options. That means whenever you have highlighted certain steps or options, users are bound to go and click on those highlighted terms. But use highlight in a very sparing mode, because if you make the entire interface cluttered with highlighting things, people will again get complex. So more the confusion, more the decision time will increase. Use progressive onboarding to minimize cognitive load for new users. So if you ask a new user to register to a site by filling a 25 field form, they are definitely not going to do it. Give them small step-by-step actions so that they can fill the entire 25 fields in a staggered way. Be careful not to oversimplify also, so that the entire interface becomes a point of abstraction. Now let us understand this mathematical equation. RT is equal to A plus B log 2 into N, a function of N, where RT is the reaction time, N is the number of stimuli present, number of option presents, and A and B are arbitrary measurable constants that depend on task that is to be carried out and conditions under which it can be carried out. Number of tasks and number of conditions with which this work can be carried out. So say for example, A can be finding the right present online for your mother-in-law, while B could be the on-screen chat with your mother-in-law in which she reminds you it is her birthday tomorrow. So it is a combination of A plus B. You have seen in many times in a departmental store, they give you so much option that many times, if you observe very carefully, people browse through those options and many a times they don't buy your stuff and they move out from the rack. Are you losing sales by giving customers too much choice?
The negative effect of choice can be more severe than a missed sale. Research shows that when there are too many options, customers feel anxious, will disengage, and can even become depressed. How people choose? What is the paradox of choice? In his book, The Paradox of Choice, Schwartz outlines a step of decision making. 1. Figure out your goals. 2. Evaluate the importance of each goal. 3. Array the options according to how well they meet each goal. 4. Evaluate how likely each of the options is to meet your goals. 5th point, pick the winning options. In our design sprint also, we do a similar process, which I will cover in the design sprint video. So if you actually plot the happiness in the y-axis and the choices in the x-axis, you will see with time, the happiness quotient increases till it reaches a threshold, and then it starts dropping down with number of choices you give. So there are two case studies. Offer few options. It may seem counterintuitive in the age of personalization. Options need to be limited to maximum sales. For examples, Procter & Gamble found that a decrease in the number of head and shoulder varieties resulted in a 10% increase in revenue. So they reduced the number of head and shoulder varieties. People got less confused and their sales rocketed by 10%. Make it easy to compare features across products. If you want to make it easy for customers to choose between non-equal options, frame the use of each. For example, Calendly uses basic, premium, and pro options to reduce the number of choices. Then they compare features across products in a table that's clear and easy to digest. That's the reason most of the websites that are selling online services or products, they nowadays have a price table where different types of prices are listed with various features. Miller's law. The average person can only keep 7 plus or minus 2 items in their working memory. A very important, and many a times it is misunderstood in various contexts. In 1956, George Miller asserted that the span of immediate memory and absolute judgment are both limited to around 7 pieces of information. What are the key takeaways? The first one I will leave like that. I will first go and explain you the main law. It tells that users can actually perceive and keep in their memory some total of 5 to 9 pointers, 5 to 9 informations. So you give the users smaller chunks of data every time. Don't overload your website or your web app in such a way that is too much information overload and your user cannot memorize anything. Remember that a short-term memory capacity will vary per individual based on their prior knowledge and situational context. Some people, if they're in certain fields where they are used to have a lot of knowledge, lot of information constantly, they will still understand or take or memorize the thing. But people who are not in the same field, not in the situation context, may forget after the 9th point. Always be careful that don't use this magical number 7 to justify unnecessary design limitations, which I will cover next. If you see these websites, in the entire portal of Bloomberg, there are too many information coming, but your brain automatically has grouped it into 7 chunks of information. One is the menu area, second is the stock ticker, the headline, news, small sub news, and the left hand side other news, and the right hand side other news. Similarly, in any e-commerce site, say for example the Nike site, we are also creating chunking. So all these thumbnails will have the name of the product. It will define whether it's a men's shoes or it's a female shoes, and the colors it has, and also the price. See, all the things, in all these things, there's a chunking that has happened, and not more than 7 elements they have displayed. However, many a times people will tell you that the navigation link of the website should be only limited to 7, which is not at all true. You can have more than 7 items in the navigation bar, because people are not required to memorize the navigation items of the menu, because it is always visible in front of them. Postal's law, a Postal's law. Postal's law, also known as the robustness principle, was formulated by John Postel, an early pioneer of the internet. The law is a design guideline for software, specifically in regard to TCP and networks, and states TCP implementation should follow a general principle of robustness by conservative in what you do, be liberal in what you accept from others. So the law goes as be liberal in what you accept and conservative in what you send. What does that mean? In simple terms, it tells you that give your users multiple ways of inputting their data points. But when you are sending the data as information, or you're consuming the data as information, be very conservative in whatever ways you are sending it. The key takeaways are: be empathetic to, flexible about, and tolerant of any of the various actions the user could take or any input they might provide. Anticipate virtually anything in terms of input, access, and capability while providing a reliable and accessible interface. It can be just your eye tracking, it can be your face recognition, it can be finger biometric recognitions, and so on and so forth. You need not to always give an input form for the users to enter into an app or get some information out of a web app or any other application. The more we can anticipate and plan for in design, the more resilient the design will be. The fourth one is accept various input from users, translating their input to meet your requirements, defining boundaries for input, and providing clear feedback to the user. The last point is extremely important. In whatever way you are taking input from the users, you should also give clear feedback to the users. So if you see in this one, it is a face tracking, and you can just enter the app. That is the way any iPad or any Apple devices either use a face ID, or it can take your thumb impression as the ID. If you also see, few years back, Google search was only with a search icon. Now you can see that there is an audio device, audio icon that has come over here, where you can also use your voice to ask the Google Assistant to search for any terms. So basically, to make the long story short, Postal's law dictates that computers should be robust enough to accept varying type of human input and not make sense of it, but also process it into a computer readable format. There can be done in a variety of ways, but perhaps the most exciting are the ones that require least amount of effort, like the Apple's Face ID, no need to input username and password all the time to unlock a device. There are other laws, rules, and effects which we should also know. The first one is peak end rule. What it says that people judge an experience largely based on how they felt at various peaks of the experience cycle, user cycle, and obviously how they end the process, rather than the total sum or average of every moment of the experience. So there are certain peak points of your experience, and how the entire experiment ends, that matters the most for your users. The second point, aesthetic usability effect. People or the users often perceive aesthetically pleasing design as design that's more usable. They feel that a very good looking site will be extremely usable, which in many of the cases are not the truth. There are fantastic websites which fails with usability. So we have to be extremely careful about this. The third one, von Restorff effect. The von Restorff effect, also known as the isolation effect, predicts that when multiple similar objects are present, the one that differs from the rest is most likely to be remembered. I will give you an example. If you have a mobile devices and you are in the home screen of the mobile device, there are a lot of icons which are almost looks the same, only varying in colors. But if you see, there is one messenger icon which has at the top showing a 3 number in a red circle with white. Automatically your eye will go over there and will try to find out how many new messages you have got. That's von Restorff effect. Tesler's law is very simple. Tesler's law, also known as the law of conservation of complexity, states that for any system, there is a certain amount of complexity which cannot be reduced. You have to accept the term that these processes will be like this. We cannot reduce the complexity. How we can make users' life better? Say, for example, for an email to send, we definitely require a form field, a to field, an email at this subject line, and a body copy. So in most of the cases, you see in the recent all email providing apps or all email providing platforms, they give you an option that whenever your form field is automatically filled with your email address, when you click on the to field and you start typing out, it gives you suggestions of the number of similar naming, similar types of email address that you have in your address book. You can pick and choose from there. You need not type out the entire email address if it's already part of your address book. In the body copy, you also have your signatures ready. So once you create the signature once and for all, whenever you are having a new mail to be sent, the signature automatically comes at the bottom of your mail. So these are the number of things that you can do to ease the complexity of the stuff. The fifth one, Doherty Threshold. Productivity soars when a computer and its users interact at a pace which is less than 400 milliseconds. That ensures that neither has to wait for the other. So basically, both the computer and the user are working in the more or less the same speed.
If you have really practiced and understood the meaning of the principles, the laws behind each and every psychology of UXD, I think you will never make mistakes in your designs. Just blindly follow the psychology, each and every rules, and stick to it. Your designs will be grammatically correct, psychology wise correct, and principally correct. I am not teaching over here how beautiful a design will be. A website design is very subjective, but the grammar should be correct, which I tell in every episodes of my UXD design. So that's all, folks. Hope you understood and went through each and every principles that governs an UXD. I think after seeing this video, which I tell in every UX design classes. Till we meet again for some other fantastic videos. Goodbye.